Hey everyone, welcome back to Spooled, the podcast from your favorite Northern Michigan fly shop, the Northern Angler. It's season 2. This is episode number 3. I'm Matt Hartman, your host, joined by my good friend here, Joe King.
Hey everybody.
Today, we're gonna be talking about a few things. We got a current event to talk about. We're gonna a single question and answer.
Ooh.
So it's a big one. We got a little over-under where we debate something, something's place in the fly fishing world,
Yes.
whether it's overrated or underrated. And then we're going to do a little MYTHBUSTERS session. Big fan of the show on Discovery, but there's so many myths out there that I think we should clear some up.
Just a few.
And these are good ones, I think, for whether you're a new angler or you've been in this game for a while. So I'm excited about this, and we got some good ones. We actually had to pare a few down because we had so many good ones. So first, we've got current events.
Current events. All right, welcome everybody.
Joe's been
events.
practicing that, actually.
I have. That is attempt number 34.
The takes were overwhelming. We ran out of room on the cards.
Keep your comments to yourself. I thought that I nailed it. Everybody out there,
Joe doesn't want to hear about it.
I do not want your negativity. Anyway, I found, walking into the shop on Monday, that there was a plethora of new tying materials that caught my fancy.
Hairline always releases some good stuff in the fall.
Yeah, there's some really cool things that I'm excited to try out. And in full disclosure, I haven't tied with them yet.
But you have purchased them.
I got ideas.
I'm guilty too. I bought some already, and
yeah,
I always buy new stuff for the shop, and usually in smaller quantities.
Yep.
Because I know I'm going to buy it, Joe's going to buy it, and we got a few other guys that are going to buy it, and we decide whether it deserves a spot on the wall, because we don't have the biggest shop.
Nope.
But I like to think that it's like we don't have everything, but it's kind of the curated collection.
Yeah.
It's what we think you should be tying with.
Yeah.
I think we need to decide, but I think, there's a lot of stuff to sort through.
I would feel confident saying that if you find it on our shelves, it's probably a good material.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. There's some remnants here and there for some classic stuff.
Those are fun.
It's fun to mix those in. So what caught your eye?
So a couple of things. So we have the 60-degree jig shanks from Spooled Flyfish out on the West Coast. The Insta-Jig tungsten heads. And in the same vein, the 6.6.
That's correct.
Mil tungsten heads from Hairline.
Those are slotted, designed to go with that.
Yeah.
Those are actually from Spawn, actually.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they're designed to go with that degree shank.
Oh.
Which
Sorry,
I
Spawn.
haven't
My bad.
put together exactly how they all go together, but
We'll find out.
I think they're from Spawn.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. We got some 6.6 mil.
They're either from Spawn
beads,
or from Hairline.
Whatever. They're sweet, and I'm gonna play around with those this winter. And then the squishy squishy.
No, you got it right. It's the Badger version of this. They make the Badger uses a dark core.
Oh,
and we should explain what this is.
Yeah.
The squishy it's a chenille, and if you've played with something like UV polar chenille, you'll understand that there's a core, and then there's fibers that are, kind of emit from that core that you can wrap around the shank of a hook. This, instead of flash, uses very thin rubber legs.
Yeah.
And something cool for bodies, for heads, things like that. And so the core is dark on all of these. That's what Badger is in the fly world for some reason. It's a two-tone with the core is dark. They make a standard, but I don't know. I like the contrast of having the dark core personally.
Yeah. Yep. I like it. Contrast is great. That material is probably the one that I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Just because it solves a couple problems that I've been playing around with.
Yeah, you were talking about a crayfish, I think?
Yeah, crayfish pattern that I've tried a couple of different materials, but they're a little bit too bulky, and they affect how quickly it'll drop through the water column. And I want something that's going to drop a little bit quicker and still have that leggy underbody, and I think that might be the ticket. Even if it isn't, I could see using it for some sort of a Hellgrammite pattern to cut
Sure.
down on time instead of tying in 4 million legs, spending 3 hours. Not really, but you know. What
Have you
seems like
ever tried to put legs in a dubbing loop?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was just curious.
I might have placed them in there. I don't think I've ever done it. I might have played around with putting them in there.
Feels expensive to do it. I'll admit that. I've done it. It's tough because you need to find really thin legs to make it work right. Otherwise they're not secure in that loop. But it feels a little silly when you're cutting up like half of a band of legs for one loop. That's why something like this squish chenille is really exciting. And I should mention, if this interests you, you know, these are probably an inch long, maybe, not even, maybe.
Yeah.
If you want even something
long,
even
side
longer, MFC makes a rubber leg brush,
if you
which
just
is a
want the
really good
legs.
value. I think there's 6 in there, and you get a bunch of stuff.
It's a lot.
So, yeah,
it's a lot. So yeah, I'm excited about that one. The Instajigs, I've been seeing those online for quite a while. But
would you describe what that is for people?
it's kind of like it's like a teardrop bead where the shank would go through. Like if you drew a teardrop on your own face, it would the shank would go through the top of the teardrop.
Sorry.
We like unnecessary steps here at Spooled. Please draw a tear on your face.
Thank you.
Tag us on Instagram. Welcome, everybody.
I'm sorry. That was a very unique analogy.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why I threw that in there. It's here.
So, teardrop shape that helps concentrate that weight away from the shank, right? To encourage that fly to ride inverted.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The 60-degree shanks, just something to be creative with.
I'm excited for that. Just because you can put so much weight concentrated at the front, and then you can get the back of the body to move independently of that weight. I think could be really good in slow water and cold, maybe even fast water and cold. So.
Yeah, I'm excited to try all that stuff out. But yeah, shall we move on to Q&A for the day?
Yeah, I've got a question that we came up with this week that we decided was a good question because it wasn't easy for each other. And really, if you had to fish one fly, Joe, for the rest of whatever, what fly would you fish?
See, I'm a sucker for these kind of questions. Like I always want to do. Like, come on, you're gonna make me pick one. Let's pick 2.
Okay,
so I'm gonna throw this out as 2.
I'll allow 2 flies. Okay,
here we
Joe,
go.
You can fish 2 flies.
Yep.
For the rest of your angling career. What are they going to be?
All right, I'm going 1 to actually catch fish.
Okay.
And I'm going 1 that I'm going to enjoy fishing no matter what.
I like that. I think that's a good approach.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to go with, you guessed it, a woolly bugger variation is my one fish or one fly to catch as many. I'm gonna put 1 fish on my line. I'm going to catch all the flies. My 1 fly to catch fish, I would say, is a woolly bugger variation. Although it wouldn't be a typical woolly bugger, it would probably be some sort of a jig thing with some legs in it.
Yeah.
Still on the small side though, because it's something that can imitate any number of things.
Okay.
For fun fly, Dahlberg diver.
Nice.
Oh man, a Dahlberg diver probably. I love fishing frogs. They're so fun.
But you can fish a diver kind of as a frog, right? I mean.
Yeah. That's usually how I fish it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I just love fishing those things so much. Or
I feel like a diver is such a good anticipation fly. By that I mean some flies you have that feeling like you cast it out there, you give it that nice strip where it dives under and it gurgles back up, and it just. The hair on the back of your neck stands up in anticipation. Do you know what I mean? And not every fly gives that, I think. So, I mean, plenty of dry flies do not, and they still work. But I don't know. There's something about making a huge disturbance on the water with a diver like that and feeling
Or
that
even just,
anticipation.
I love just even if you hit it slow and you just see the wake go and it doesn't make any sound at all. And then as soon as it pops back up off the surface, you can't help but just go, oh, this is going to get slammed. Come on, come on. So it's just fun. Even if I don't catch anything, I'm going to think that I'm going to catch like 50 fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my two. How about you?
Ooh, well, I'm gonna stick with that same framework that you're coming up with. One fly to definitely produce when I need it, and one that's I just enjoy seeing on the water and being cast out there. So I was really torn about the fish catcher, but I'm gonna have to go with the Michigan wet skunk.
Ooh, classic.
Which is, I'll be honest, it's kind of a splitting the difference for me, because fishing a skunk for me could be engaging, because you can usually I'm not fishing them real deep, right? So you can actually follow them along, and it can be a fun fly to fish at times. For my fun fly, I'm probably gonna, like a really, really, really big chubby Chernobyl.
Ooh, good one.
Like the slam down, the WWE SmackDown size one. You know,
Can
it's
you
just
smell?
you know, it's I think that'd be, I don't know. I just love floating down the river in the summer, and just it's kind of a lazy smack it down, kick your feet up and fish with friends, and wearing a giant sun hat. It's fun.
It does have that same anticipation in the trout version of the Dahlberg diver. You're just like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
That is like the
It
perfect
deserves
drift.
a fish.
Yeah.
I like
you feel
that.
cheated if you don't catch something on a couple
all
spots.
the time. All the time. I always cheated with that.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know, I didn't have the best hopper year, so.
I didn't either.
It was kind of it was, I think.
We didn't get out as much as we normally do.
No, and we had such low water
Holy
consistently.
Man.
So, a lot of the spots where fish would sit in their anticipation for food floating down, I don't think they were able to sit in as well, because there wasn't that cover super close by that they could, get their grab bag and run and escape to. So I think that changed some of the trout dynamics this summer and this spring and all year for that matter.
Yeah.
So
we did not have those big rain events.
No, we did not. All right. We are going to jump to one of my favorite new segments is underrated or overrated. And I probably said it wrong this time. I think it's over under, but I'm just going to keep you guessing. Okay.
Yeah.
So this week's topic, Joe, fluorocarbon. Fluorocurb, which is that's kind of a shout out to some friends we know.
Yeah.
But fluorocarbon, I think, is it's something that not lots of new anglers spend time thinking about.
Sure.
Which is fine. I think a lot of times when you're new in this sport, you should limit the amount of things you should worry about.
Yep.
But I think after you get past that initial hump, fluorocarbon should be included in your decision making especially when we're talking about leaders, tippet, and things like that. So
definitely.
Let's see. So Joe, where do you land with this one?
Much like our Q&A, I'm going to go with two different viewpoints. I'm going to say for newer anglers, much the same as you alluded to, I'm going to say vastly underrated.
Okay.
For people who are who others would say are expert anglers, I'm going to say probably overrated, because they talk about it so much, and I'm kind of annoyed about hearing
it's a very common.
It's super common
thing.
And now it's
once you jump in,
and we talked about before we started recording about how people are jumping into I like this one versus that one. I don't get it.
I mean,
I get some of it, but I don't get all.
Get it, but sometimes when you're just, I don't know, I'm so rarely just devoted to one brand's specific, this line from this brand in this color is the only thing I fish because it's the only thing it works. And I think that's it's a little bit absolutist maybe. And They're just fish.
Yeah, yeah. And I have
Don't
had
come after me.
Yeah, ooh, hot takes.
Hot takes.
I have had some fluorocarbon products that are clearly not as good as others.
Yeah.
Which but at a certain point it becomes excessive. But I think maybe it would be helpful to kind of back up and say why we think it's a good material to have.
I agree. I think that's a great, let's reframe this a little bit, zoom out a little bit. And for me, fluorocarbon is really a good material when stealth is important, when you want to achieve depth faster, and when you want something that is more durable than monofilament.
Yes.
I think those are the three big ones for me. How about you?
I would agree with those. I would agree with those three. For me, the abrasion resistance is probably the biggest one. And then the stealth. So a lot of people talk about the refractory properties.
Yeah.
I think I tend to rest more on it. Seems like you can get stronger, like diameter to strength ratio. And that's what I tend to rest my case on.
I think, that's a great point, because I'll be totally honest. That's the least important quality to fluorocarbon for me, is the light refraction. It's invisible. The least important thing. For me, it's that durability under stress.
Yep.
And it's achieving depth. There's times when trout just want to eat nymphs under the surface. And both Joe and I do fish the tight line stuff, the Euro nymph stuff, and it's very effective. And I'll tell you, 5X mono is not going to get down nearly as fast as 5X fluoro.
Yep.
And when you are fishing a very tight spot, you have, 6 feet of water that you're trying to really break down, you don't want to cast way upstream, lose control of your fly, try and regain it for the strike zone, and then hope it all works out. I just want something that works.
Yep.
So for me, I would say fluorocarbon is fairly underrated. I think people get sticker shock, and I think they almost,
it's an investment.
Almost recoil.
Yeah.
When I don't mean to be moving back and forth in front of the mic here, but they recoil when they see the price of fluorocarbon, because generally, almost by rule, it's around 3 times as expensive as mono of the same length spool. And some companies have played with the amount of material on fluorocarbon spools versus mono to try and equate things a little bit. So watch out for that. But I think people are too quick to dismiss it because it's expensive. Quote, I'm doing air quotes here, everyone, expensive. I mean, Brian and I always talk about this is, okay, you plan this wonderful trip. Say you're going out west once a year. You got yourself a nice fly rod, beautiful reel, premium fly line, but we see it all the time. I don't want to buy fluorocarbon. Or do you have any cheaper leaders or tippet? Like, this is where we're gonna.
You're going to a place
this is the
rocks.
point where you're gonna save money, really. So you deserve it. If you're gonna, I'll gladly spend $13 on a spool of fluorocarbon versus the $6 or whatever for mono, if it's gonna make, because I believe it helps that connection of the fly. So I think that's why I think it's underrated, is that sticker shock. I agree with you that sometimes it's too big of a talking point for people, and I guess we're part of that now since we're talking about it. But we're trying to look at both sides of it, and trying to frame it for people to understand where we're coming from with this.
Yes.
So, all of our guides, every single one of them, use fluorocarbon tippet when they're steelhead fishing, which is, those fish put a lot of stress on. They're big fish. So
it makes sense.
It's why not? It's the last thing you want as a guide is you hook into a fish and the line fails. I mean, it hurts enough when I do it on my own. Man. It's so much worse. If I imagine having a customer hooking into the fish they've they've traveled to Michigan for, or they've spent, 8 months, working at the office, saving up for a trip, and the line fails because there's a nick in it or something, because that fish rubs against a log or something. So
sure,
it's cheap insurance. And when you look at it that way.
Yeah. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough, sorry, everybody, is that a benefit is that it doesn't break down as much in UV and water exposure as compared to nylon, which also means that you need to be, it'll be more durable season after season. You don't need to replace it every year. Check it. But when you clip tag ends, you got to make sure you keep them, because that's not really going to, nylon will break down.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword.
It's not great, but yeah,
it's not going to break down. And everyone, please, should be trying to keep track of all their tippet material, no matter what it is, and just make a habit of it. Usually I shove it in my waders and then empty it out when I get home. But
that's why I use the pack I use, because I just clip it into the pack, and then every couple of weeks I take everything out of the packet and turn it upside down. It's amazing. I'm like, wow, I produced that much trash in like a month.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's
could I back up and do one recommendation? I think
absolutely.
I think you would. I hope that you would agree. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, is that when you're beginning, I would recommend figuring out how to apply the right X to the situation before you go and invest in fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
Like maybe get one size of fluorocarbon, like 3X is probably a good size.
Depends on how you're using it.
I use it for streamers mostly.
Okay. Yeah. I'll admit something. I don't usually use fluoro for streamers. Hot takes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Just learn how to use your tippet before you blow a ton of money on it. But as soon as you feel comfortable with it, go for it.
Talk to your local shop.
Yeah.
Just because we carry 0X through 7X does not mean you need every spool. I certainly don't carry all of those. And I'll gladly tell anyone who asks, you need, let's see, 0 through 6X if you're your own nymphing. Or 3 through, did I say 0?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
I was going to let it slide.
4 through 6, excuse me.
Yeah. Yep.
So, simple as that.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Today's main topic, we're in MythBusters. Woo. And this is going to be fun. I mentioned it earlier. Big fan of the original MythBusters show on Discovery.
Great show.
Wish we could all spend all day in the workshop tinkering and coming up with experiments to test. But there's, I think, a ton of information out there for new anglers, and it's overwhelming.
Cool.
We talked about this in episode 1 with fly lines. It's information overload. So today we're just going to go through some seemingly common topics that people come in, we hear about all the time, that that make us pause and say, well, that's actually not true. So we got 3 today, and number 1 is going to be more flies, the better, because this one's very personal to me. Is I definitely spent years thinking, I need more flies. I'm not going to catch fish unless I have every fly imaginable.
Yep.
And I even did, I talked about this in a YouTube video we did a while back, where it almost became this mental handicap for me, where I'd want to go to the river and I'd convince myself on my day off that, I don't have enough flies. I don't have the John Bar, whatever caddis in a size 16 in olive. I have it in every other color, and it would just, I'd stay home and tie, which made me a much better tyer.
Sure.
But it just made me insecure about my fly boxes more than anything. It perpetuated itself. So this is the myth, is you do not need tons and tons and tons of flies to catch fish. We'd love to sell them to you.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
I love to have them.
We understand that this is maybe not the best sales advice, but I think this is the truth.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at that stage where I know that I don't need every fly, but I have a hard time not having them. But I think that over the next year or two, I'm probably going to really slim down my boxes, as we talked about previously with throwing out flies.
Yeah.
And I find that I get a lot of paralysis on the water, or I start second guessing and I switch so much that I'm being inefficient with my time on the water, or skipping over something that actually probably would have worked if I would have given it more time. So it's a delicate balance, because some situations you do have to be exact.
Certainly.
Most of the time, probably not.
Yeah.
You probably just need to fish it in a different way, in a different type of water. And
what do you think is a good
work.
way for someone to decide what to spend time on tying, or what to buy to put in their box?
I always recommend the same sort of like colorways to people, and I think that usually we talk about that in hoppers and streamers, but I think it applies to a lot.
Yeah.
For dries, my recommendation, which I'm not a huge dry fly expert, but I would probably say pick a style of dry fly that you like and stick with that. Like if you like parachutes, stick with parachutes and build out your collection there.
Yeah.
But usually I try to go with my big primary colors, my white, tan, black, olive, and then I might choose one crazy color to have along with. But stick with the basics. Mostly basics. Pick a couple crazy ones and experiment. But that's a tough question. How would you answer it?
I think the best thing you can do if you're trying to decide what to tie to put in your box or what to buy and use your money and time effectively is get a hatch chart.
Yes.
And talk to either a guide or a shop or someone you trust in the area who's been around and is familiar with the region you're fishing in, and find out what's your core group. And I say that because if you look at our hatch chart, the first thing on there, blue-winged olives.
Yep.
Hatch all year. Do I carry any? Rarely.
Yeah.
Because I know that at least on the Manistee and the Boardman, fish usually are not going to spend much time and energy chasing those dries.
You see them a lot.
I'll carry some small nymphs, sure, and maybe I could grease those and fish them in the film,
sure,
and probably get away with it. But I'm going to spend my time on Hendrickson's, sulfurs, probably ISOs,
yep,
obviously the Hex,
yep,
and maybe a few others.
Sure.
And just because a lot of those you can work as dual purpose.
Yep.
I can get a bigger mahogany and maybe get away with it as a March Brown if I want, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get too technical, but I think a hatch chart is probably the best starting point in terms of understanding what's available to the fish, and then find out what those core groups are and expand from there.
Yeah. I found that it got overwhelming even if I stuck with just blue-winged olives.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, do I want to compare it on? Do I want a parachute? Do I want that got very, because then you're like, holy shit, now I got to get 3 sizes of all of these different variations.
Yeah.
And you get some money tied up in flies.
Because I'll tie, like for our core hatches, I'll tie a standard parachute. I'll tie a Comparadon. I'll tie sometimes a CDC emerger.
Ooh, yeah.
I'll tie 4 or 5 different looks to give a fish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one hatch,
Yeah.
And then usually our hatches come in probably 2 sizes, sometimes 3, depending on where we're at in the hatch. Whoa, that's a lot of flies.
A lot of flies.
And I don't think that's necessary. You can.
I'd say, like, if you're just starting out, pick 1 or 2 styles that you like, that you're confident in, build those out, have a whole collection, and then get a couple to experiment with, and then you can slowly build. But
yeah, you don't need to be Lord of the Flies.
No, even on like streamers and stuff, you freak yourself out trying to get the right.
I'll never forget.
one.
We took we took 2 boats, and it was Lindy, Bacon, Nate, and myself. And Nate gets in my boat and shows me his box, his streamer box for a full day. We're fishing 8 hours. I swear he has 6 flies total.
Bet you he believed in him.
Yeah. And no problem. He catches a fish. And it's because he has this ability not to fixate on the fly.
Yeah.
And he fixates more on the action.
Yep.
And what it can do in the water and what he can do with his technique.
How sharp the hooks are.
Yes, he is obsessed with that as well.
He is.
So
Love you, Nate.
Hey, buddy.
All right. Next. You've got to buy a boat.
Oh, man.
I should buy a boat. How many people have considered buying a boat recently? I know I'm in that category.
Oh, my.
And this is...
I own more than one, and I'm in that category.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I need this boat. I need that boat. And I think this is almost the highest form of something I've noticed in fly fishing is that we know we can't always control what happens on the water.
Sure.
I think that's something we all accept, but we can control what's in our tackle box, what's in our quiver of rods, what's in our, what waders we're wearing, all those things we can control. And I think sometimes when we get frustrated with the unknowns, the uncertainties of being on the water when things don't always go the right way, sometimes we compensate with, well, I didn't catch any fish today. I better go buy a new fly line.
Yeah.
I love it, but I'll probably maybe talk you out of it when you come into the shop, just so you know. But I think the boat is maybe the highest form of that.
Yeah.
I'm certainly guilty of it, which is why I've bought, I'm nowhere near I have friends that have cycled through boat after boat after boat after boat.
Sure.
And it's fun. It's fun to be in a boat. But there's some major issues with buying a boat, I'll tell you.
Let's hear it.
Major issues. Number 1, obligation. Obligation is the number 1 issue with telling yourself you need to buy a boat, or once you buy a boat, you want to go fishing, you're always going to feel obligated to float. Always. Because I paid for it, I need to use it. Okay, well, what if you can't find a friend to float with? What if, how are you going to move your car?
Sure.
Are you going to ride a bike, run between, walk, whatever? It's a lot of logistics added to a boat. And that obligation I promise you, will prevent you from going fishing on occasion. It certainly has happened to me.
Yep.
Because it's not all that fun to try and float down a river and fish by yourself, or even in the lake. I mean, the lake, if you have a trolling motor, I get it. I do that. I have that. It's a blast. But let's just talk about, say, a drift boat.
Sure.
Not so much fun by yourself.
No.
So that's the number 1 thing I see. Maintenance, upkeep, all those things are going to eat time.
Bust out another 1,000
that you could, yeah.
2 best days of having a boat, or the day you got it and the day you sold it.
So that's one of the biggest ones I see is the obligation of using a boat.
So I spent all my stimmy checks on a kayak, and that was my boat purchase of COVID, like a lot of people. I feel like if you find the right boat and you're actually going to use it, sure. But I thought you were going to go with the obligation. Like, I feel obligated to be the boat guy for my group of friends.
No.
But there are a lot of people with boats now.
Yes.
And
there's
I feel
more anglers with boats than ever before. I mean, way more. Way more.
And it's like I feel like you kind of put yourself, I feel like whenever I've fished out of boats on some of the rivers, I'm ending up being in a more crowded situation than I ever would be waiting. Because I'm kind of forced to go where everybody else is going because of launches and roads and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. There's not many secrets no secrets for people with boats, really.
No. It's so fun, though.
It's fun. It's fun. And it's two different philosophies, right? And again, we're talking about floating down the river.
Yeah.
It's two different philosophies. It's A, be in the boat and cover more water, or B, be a waiter and cover water, really, really, really well. A smaller swath a smaller section of water.
Yes.
And you're covering it, with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and I've certainly found success both ways.
Which would you rather, say you're starting out as a new angler, which do you do first, boat or wade?
Wade.
Agreed.
When we talked about this before.
Yep.
I think wading teaches you many things that being in a boat cannot.
Yes, I agree. Because I feel like going from wading to the boat, the only thing we talked about this, the only thing you got to overcome is that habit of casting straight across at a 90-degree angle from the boat, which is annoying and it's hard to break. But you know how to manage your line. You know how to read water already. You get some help with line management from the rower if it's a good rower, and which I'm not yet. But I feel like you have a much more solid foundation in the basics with wading.
There's definitely, if you're a brand new angler fishing out of the front of a boat, it's almost like a cheat code.
Yeah. Because
you're not worrying as much about line drag. If you have someone who can use the sticks, you don't have to worry so much about wading precariously to the right position. If you have someone who can row accurately and put you in the right spot, and it's really nice. It's a wonderful thing. It's a team is what it is, between the person rowing and the anglers. It's a very much a team thing. It's reading, okay, I want this guy to cast there, or he's going to want to cast there, so I need to position the boat here at this speed. But I think the river, when you're standing in it, it can be a brutal teacher.
Yes.
But I think you can take away more skills being a wade angler.
And especially if you're trying to learn a river.
Yes.
You both, if you can, really gotta wade it.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. You really get to know all the ins and outs of the river when you actually get into it. And for me, it's a great thing because you actually connect with the river. And I see a lot more wildlife when I wade because usually I'm not yelling at my friends in a boat.
Yeah.
So that helps. But they're both great. I would say you don't need to buy a boat.
You don't need to. Make friends with a boat. Make friends with someone who owns a boat.
Hey, and make sure you contribute to when you go out with your friends. Like, pay for gas or something like that because taking the boat is not free. Says the guy who doesn't have a boat and borrows Matt's all the time.
I haven't borrowed your kayak.
You haven't? Come on out.
I'll work on that. All right. Myth number 3. This is a fun one for me because this is something I heard right from the get-go. It's right in what I think, it's right in the middle of what I think is maybe the best intro book as well. Curtis Creek Manifesto.
Ooh.
Really fun. It's not too dense. It's almost not dense at all. It's like unbelievably thin, but it's just basics. But it hammers home fish upstream to sneak up on these fish. And I remember just being endlessly frustrated with the line management as a new angler working upstream. Once you finally get the cast out there and get it in the right spot, your line's coming back at you and it's creating slack.
Tons.
And I think it's really, really important skill to learn, but I really do not believe that you have to fish upstream all the time. I fish downstream a ton.
Same.
And I kind of like it.
It's a lot more pleasant to me. You probably, and by probably I mean definitely, give up on opportunities on fish just because it is like you're not going to be as stealthy.
Yes.
You're going to kick up stuff, especially with as much sand and stuff as we have here. Like we don't have as many rocks to kind of cover your steps. So for sure you're going to spook more fish. Unless there are two situations that I feel very confident wading downstream. 3. First one, when I feel lazy, I'm going downstream and I don't care. Like if I'm going out for a fun trip, I don't care if I catch 2 little dinks. I don't care. I'm just going out to blow off some steam and de-stress and hang out. So that was my third one that I added on there. Ready for the real ones? Here we go. Sun angle. I feel like if the sun is not at the right angle, I'm going to go downstream. I'm either going to go downstream for the day if I know it's a stretch that isn't going to be in my favor for the sun, or I might get out and go upstream to fish something from the other side. It could be a current issue, but around here, usually it's a sun issue. And then when the water has some stain in it, I don't think that it matters that much. And it's way easier walking when the water's higher. You kind of walk like you're in a boat sometimes.
Oh yeah.
You got to watch out because you can float a hat pretty quick.
It's actually I have a rule I've told a lot of people about over the years that I'll admit I break it all the time. And it is, do not walk and fish at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I break that every time I fish.
I break it all the time. But I mean, every time I do, I almost go for a swim.
Oh, yeah.
Every time. Because I'm watching that fly. I'm throwing them in. Oh, there's a hole. I'm gone. So
tree branches.
Yeah. So I'd say, don't just commit to one or the other, but understand that being able to do both, fish upstream well and fish downstream well, will allow you to approach what I'd call a problem, or a rising fish, if you will, from multiple angles. And it's more tools in your toolbox, is being able to, oh man, there's really tough wading downstream of this fish, or it's a weird tree angle or something, and being able to approach that fish maybe from upstream, casting down to it and knowing how to feed that line, how to throw those downstream mends, those reach mends, and then your stack mends. It's more tools in your toolbox as an angler. So just don't be stuck in that I must go upstream only.
Yeah.
There's times for it.
Yeah,
but there's definitely, that's all I'm saying is don't be stuck in that one way of fishing.
It also depends too on if it's how big the river is. Mm-hmm. Like if it's a small stream, I'm pretty much never going downstream.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Because there's just no way. I've found too, especially in the winter when a lot of water shuts down, wade it both ways, because you learn it almost becomes a new section if you're used to doing it up or down, and then you do it the opposite way.
Different challenges. It's fun.
Yeah, you learn different things. And then that sun angle is a big one for me, because especially if you're fishing after work or something and you get the same angle all the time, you see different things. If you go at a different time of day or fish at a different direction, you see things that you might not otherwise. You can go, oh, okay, that's a good holding line. Maybe in the right season or whatever, I'm going to know that that's there and come back and hit it.
I think that's a great point.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't even think about almost the not fishing, part of that, but seeing the river and like learning it just by walking it different directions. And, oh, there's a pour over. I should, next time I come back here, I'm going to fish that, that side of that. Yeah. So that's a good way to think about it.
Or it's like a competition. Like, do I fall in more going down, or do I fall more going up? What is it going to be today? Usually down.
And
I fall a lot going down.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up. So 3 myths that
all busted.
I think we at least did our part to try and tell you aren't always true.
Yes.
I think being stuck in absolutism is the dangerous part.
They're all wrong, Matt. Just kidding. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys, for listening. This was a fun one. Stay tuned for episode 4, and hope you get out and get fishing here soon.
If there are topics, questions that you have for us, please reach out. We'd love to address it and loop you all into the show, because you're the ones that we are making this for. So thanks for tuning in.
Yep. You can reach us through the Spooled website, which is on Anchored. And also Instagram is a great one to get a hold of. We'll put these up on YouTube as well. You can leave us comments there. You can also email us. Remember, support your local fly shops. Even if you're not ordering from us, try and try and support a local shop. I know
Yeah.
we'll appreciate it big time. So,
We all are invested in the waters around us, and local shops do a lot
Yeah.
for the waters we all love. So
thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.